Okay. Okay. Let us know whenever you can hear us on there.
Yeah, it's a little bit delayed.
Yeah. All right, well, welcome everyone for joining us for this first ever live stream from Origin Coffee Club. My name is Misha, and I'm very excited to have Dustin of Aspen Coffee Co. And then off camera, we have Jorge of Macizo Coffee and Barista Chewbacca on Instagram, who will be joining us shortly for the brewing portion. But to start off, we're gonna have Dustin talk a little bit more about himself, a little bit more about how he started Aspen, and then we're gonna get into talking about these two really great Rwandan coffees that if you have either purchased or are interested in purchasing, they are available as coffee kits on his website. But before we get into that, Dustin, talk about how you got into coffee. What was your kind of specialty coffee moment, if you had one? And then kind of what inspired you to really start your own like roasting company?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of always been into coffee to some degree. Got my first espresso machine when I was like 16, like a $30 machine from Walmart, just pulling terrible shots. But it was a lot of fun, really enjoyed it. And then around 2018, 2019 or so, I was frequenting a coffee shop nearly every day that roasted on site. That was kind of my first exposure to roasting, and here's what unroasted coffee looks like. And I was able to kind of taste different origins side by side for the first time. So that was the first time I was like, whoa, like coffee isn't just coffee, right? There's a whole world of flavor here to explore. So kind of the big light bulb coffee for me was a washed Tanzanian pea berry. I think you kind of always remember that first coffee that really like stood out to you. Yeah, so you know, that's what really sparked my interest. I was like, oh, now I want to taste what a Costa Rican coffee tastes like compared to an Ethiopian, and started exploring that way, but found that I couldn't tinker and as much as I wanted to. You know, I'm naturally very curious. I like to tinker. I want to taste this coffee light, medium, dark next to another light, medium, dark, compare the flavors. So that's kind of what led me to roast myself. Got a cheap roaster that could do like 200 grams at a time and just started experimenting.
That's awesome. Now, I know you've been to Origin a few times. Yeah. Did you do that before you started roasting? Was that only a thing after? And if at all, how'd that really change your perspective on like just coffee itself?
Yeah, you know, I think when I was learning to roast, I was teaching myself, watching every YouTube video I could find, reading every, you know, article and everything. And I think when you take that approach to learning something, it's a very process driven, kind of like a scientific, like here are the phases of the roast and, you know, the different temperatures and everything. Visiting Honduras this year, spending time with producers, you know, walking their farms, cupping their coffees on their farms with them, kind of made me see it in a whole new light. You know, I'm seeing the people, how this affects their lives, you know, the things they're doing in their community with the money they get from producing coffee. Some of them are building schools, providing fresh water. So that kind of completely changed my approach, not only to roasting coffee, but just coffee in general.
What kind of values do you really try to bring to kind of your brand? Like, do you try to get some of that transparency to the farmers, trying to really showcase them in their work? Or what do you really try to, you know, like, pushes your mission of Aspen Coffee?
I think it's kind of twofold. One piece of it is I felt when I was kind of trying to get into specialty coffee and learn, it was kind of a bit intimidating. It felt like I needed to have all this special brew equipment and I needed to have this extremely trained palate and everything to appreciate specialty coffee. And as I got into it more and more and then tried all these new things, I've learned that anybody can appreciate specialty coffee. You just have to put in kind of the work to slow down and just think about, you know, what you're consuming rather than just, this is my daily cup, let me chug it and get, you know, it's just a caffeine fix. So that's kind of step one, is I want to make people feel that specialty coffee is for them. And it doesn't matter how you brew or anything, just I want to meet you where you are and provide that coffee. Along with that, every single coffee has its story, and I want to connect you to that story. So I want to, talk about the farm where this was produced, and talk about the producer, the decisions they made at origin, how those decisions affect what ends up in the cup. So kind of that education piece, and just bringing specialty coffee to where you are. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need a super trained palate to just slow down and appreciate a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. That's definitely something that we try to do with all of our events at Origin Coffee Club. Now, to talk about these two coffees, how did you go about choosing Rwanda as an origin, and then kind of showcasing the two differences that we really want to highlight with this tasting?
Yeah. At the time that you approached me to kind of do an event like this, I was, just for my own purposes, trying Rwandan coffees. I like to kind of explore some of the smaller origins. You think of the Ethiopias and Colombias. I like to grab some small lots from places like Rwanda, small African countries, and just experiment with the roasting and the flavor profiles and everything. So I was roasting these coffees already, and I was just really surprised with the flavor profiles and everything. And then, when you approached me about the event, it just felt like a natural fit. It was already what I was roasting, what I was tasting, and a lot of people probably haven't had coffees from Rwanda. So felt like a great fit. And these two processes in particular, I think, kind of cover the spectrum pretty well of what you can expect from Rwandan coffee.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about kind of the process and processing differences very shortly here, but let's just quickly go over these two coffees, and let's start off with the anaerobic natural.
Yeah, so this coffee comes from the Mohororo washing station. Collection of smallhold farmers all take their coffee cherries to this washing station where they're processed. This is an anaerobic natural process. So in the natural process, we take the coffee cherry, we dry it in the sun with the fruit attached until it's completely dry, and that's the process. The anaerobic natural adds a step in there. So we take the coffee cherry after it's picked. They'll do a sorting. Well, they'll float the coffee to make sure they only get the densest coffee, and then it's sealed in a tank where it's in a low oxygen or no oxygen environment, which is the anaerobic piece, to ferment for about 72 hours. And that low oxygen environment and that fermentation kind of breaks down some of the sugars and intensifies the flavors in that coffee. And then once it goes through that fermentation process, they'll take it to African raised beds and dry it in the sun for 25 to 30 days or so.
Awesome. And what about our other coffee, which is a washed?
Yeah, so this coffee actually comes from Gishimwana Island, also in Rwanda. So these are from the same region of Rwanda, not the same farm, but they are both red Bourbon varietals. This coffee, Gishimwana Island, is an island in the middle of Lake Kivu. Lake Kivu is one of the deepest lakes in the world, created by a lot of volcanic activity in Rwanda. So you get to take a boat about an hour from the shore to get to this island. And because of that, because it's so far out, there's no pest, there's no disease or anything like that. It's it's its own ecosystem on this island where this coffee grows, and it's a forest. So these are naturally shaded coffees, which really helps with the growth of the coffee. But this is a washed process. So the coffee is picked, taken back to the washing station, the wet mill, where it is depulped. There'll be a short fermentation for the mucilage to kind of dry up and come off the coffee, be washed again, and then dried in the sun. Similar to only about 10 to 12 days for this one. But yeah, so with the anaerobic natural, you're gonna get kind of intense fruit flavors. Really, the fruit of the coffee is gonna come through. With the washed, we're kind of get the fruit out of the way and let the origin of the coffee do the talking.
That's awesome. We're gonna go ahead and transition now to our brewing segment. If you'll give us just a few moments, we're gonna kind of switch up our setup here, and we're gonna bring in Jorge of Macizo Coffee and Dynamic Coffee, who's gonna help brew these coffees, starting off with the conical method, which is going to be tailored a little bit more towards the anaerobic natural. And then later on for the AeroPress, we'll be brewing with the washed. But you can of course mess around however you'd like with any of these coffees and any of these brew methods, but that's just what we recommend. So if you give us just a few moments here, we'll be back really shortly.
Ready? Cool.
Cool. All right, welcome back, guys. Like we mentioned, we're gonna brew the anaerobic natural coffee now with my friend Jorge here, your regional AeroPress champion. Jorge, thank you for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you guys for including me. This is fun. We're having a great time trying amazing coffees. So what else could I do on a Sunday morning, you know?
There's no better way to spend a Sunday.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we'll get into it.
Well, I'm a professional barista for the last 9 years. Four of them back in Origin in Honduras that you have the pleasure to visit last year. And the last 5 years here in Pittsburgh. Actually, this month has been 5 years.
Wow.
Currently, I'm a barista for Dynamic Coffee Roasters here in Pittsburgh. And at the side also starting my own like roasting company / coffee retails, events, education programs called Macizo. So here we are today, ready for do some coffee.
Awesome. So you want to talk a little bit about why we chose V60 for this particular coffee and the process and everything?
Yeah, cool. We're gonna do this first coffee that is the Rwanda anaerobic natural on a conical dripper. We're doing V60 today because it's usually one of the most common that people has at home, but you are not limited to use just V60. You can use any conical shape. Can be origami, can be a UFO. There's many other like conicals like Chemex, whatever.
Yeah.
But this time we're using the V60 or the conical because we want to give more clearly to those fruity flavors from this anaerobic. And plus it's a coffee that is already kind of intense and the own with a really high intensity of the body texture. We want to do it on a conical so we can balance it out more, that part. We don't want to have some flavors that the acidity and the sweetness is going to be a little down and then your body too high. We want something that will be harmonious all the way and very rounded in the whole cup. So conical pour over fits more in that characteristics for this specific coffee bean.
Yeah, and I think for as far as pour over is concerned, we are grinding a little more coarse than you may for another coffee. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is, because once this coffee is still a little fresh, it's still having just like over like 7 days maybe.
It's going on 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little fresh still.
Yep. So we usually go a little coarser. Plus that closer part also gonna help us to balance that body texture, give us a little quicker extraction, and we gonna have that intensity on a medium side. That is when we want it, so we can appreciate better all the characteristics and all the flavors that this coffee in particular has to offer. Cool. So we gonna use 15 grams of coffee. You will be able to see the recipe on the screen eventually in a couple minutes. So we're gonna use 15 grams of coffee. I'm using a Comandante that is a hand grinder, but you can use whatever grinder you have. Just try to go something that is medium coarse and you should be fine. It's gonna be a little loud.
And as Jorge's grinding that, we mentioned that we go a little more coarse here. When we grind finer, we increase the contact time between the coffee and water, and that's going to increase the extraction. So when we're talking about getting kind of that heavier body, we're really kind of referring to over extracting the coffee, where we're pulling out more than we want to pull out. And particularly with a natural coffee, a lot of times we get more fines than we would with a like a washed coffee. So if we grind too fine, those fines can clog the filter, slow down the draw, and ultimately result in an over extracted cup. So that's kind of why you want to go a little more coarse with this coffee than you may for another pour over.
Yes, that's exactly right. One more bean. There we go.
Okay.
Oh man, I love the smell of fresh coffee.
It does smell good. I can smell it over here.
Yeah. Cool. Once you have your coffee already, balance it out on your pour over. You're gonna tar your scale. We're gonna start the timer, and you're gonna do a spray infusion of first pour up to 45 grams of water. in circles. Try to wet all the bed of the coffee in a homogeneous way, so all the coffee start to get extracted simultaneously.
And especially when a coffee is too fresh, this is going to give it a chance to off-gas all that CO2. So when you bloom, if you're seeing kind of, bubbles happening in the coffee, that's that gas releasing. And that gas is ultimately blocking pathways, where the water should be extracting the coffee. So it's part of why we bloom, is to kind of get that out of the way so we can extract evenly.
Exactly. So we're doing it a little longer than usual. We're gonna do 45 seconds, and right now we're gonna pour our second pour all the way up to 160 grams of water. Still making circles, trying to wet the whole bed of coffee so we can extract evenly all the flavors for this coffee. Then we're gonna let it wait until we reach 1 minute and 30 seconds to do the final pour.
That smells great.
Smells really good. And here we are. 130 or 135? 135, cool. So 135 seconds and we do our last pour. All the way up to 230. There we go. And we're just gonna give it a little swirl, because sometimes we have some coffee grounds that just stays on the walls and you need all the coffee to get extracted together. So you are able to optimize your cup and be able to extract all the flavors that you need out of it. And it should be ready in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Can be a little faster, can be a little longer. Also, that will depend on what paper filter are you using. There's some filters that are a little thicker than other ones, and they are just made it to accelerate your extraction. So you can play around more with your ground size depending what you're looking for. This was 224. That is not that far away of our goal in the recipe you have in the screen. And I'm saying this about the time because time is not a rule that you need to stick on it when you're brewing coffee. The time is very subjective depending how fresh is the coffee. Because more CO2 that is releasing, slower it will be your extraction, because the water will be a harder time passing through. Also depending how many fines your grinder provides you, or how dark is your roast, because darker it goes, easier it breaks, so you create even more finer. So all those parameters will affect your final time of extraction. So don't feel bad, don't feel like, oh, I messed it up. Is your times are not exactly alike at the ones that you will see on the screen.
Yeah, and if you find that you were a little too fast, maybe grind a little finer. If you were a little too slow, grind a little coarser next time. But yeah, I mean, there's no rules when it comes to brewing these coffees or any coffees. You're really just looking to pull out those flavors that you enjoy.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, so what I really like about anaerobic naturals in general, but especially this coffee, is kind of that initial tropical fruit acidity you get with it.
Yep.
And then as it cools, it kind of mellows out a little bit. But when it's hot, it's kind of intense. And I like that intensity. Not everybody does. I always say that, an anaerobic natural is not for everyone.
Yeah, it's a required taste.
Yeah, my wife hates natural coffees, especially hates anaerobic natural coffees. So, it's an acquired taste for sure. But this one, has a really nice tropical fruit acidity to it.
Yep.
Almost like a chocolate caramel sweetness.
Yep, has a very chocolate there, especially in the aftertaste, like milk chocolate, very sweet, and kind of like that perfect balance between sweet and bitter.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
And
some berries also.
You'll definitely notice with this cup, it's going to have a heavier body than the washed coffee does when we get to that. This has almost like a syrupy mouthfeel.
Yep.
Which I, again, personally really enjoy.
Same.
Personal preference is to use anaerobic naturals for espresso. I'm a big fan of naturals and anaerobic natural processed coffees on espresso. I think that they lend themselves really well to milk drinks.
Especially milk drinks, yeah.
So the milk really mellows it out, kind of dials back that intensity a little bit.
They do, yeah. And if you're brewing this with us at the same time, or you're just gonna watch this video later, remember, always enjoy your coffee slowly. Coffee evolves when it's cooling down. You will find some flavors when it's hot, then it will evolve, or you will be more easy for you to identify another flavors when it's kind of like getting cold, and then different flavors in their coolest point. That doesn't have to do with because the extraction is changing over time. It's more about how your tongue can identify easy some flavors as the temperature is dropping down.
Yeah.
So take your time, enjoy your coffee. I know that a lot of us, we enjoy coffee when it's hot. It's just how we learn how to drink it. But you will be surprised as you wait a couple minutes and you keep your coffee just to getting cool. You will discover some flavors that you might just lose, and it's all part of the experience.
Yeah, that's a great point. You mentioned kind of that berry flavor in this coffee. I've noticed as this one cools, you really get a strong, like, cooked fruit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point, especially when you're doing a filter coffee, letting it cool pulls out a lot of, you know, different flavors that weren't there when it was hot.
Oh man, this is really good.
It's a great coffee.
It is.
Okay, I think we are just about ready to switch over to our wash process coffee and get that brewed. For that, we're going to use the AeroPress. So we'll be right back. Give us a few minutes to kind of swap our supplies here. And,
I just need to clean this mess, so we'll be back.
That's right. Okay, welcome back, guys. Now we're going to brew our washed coffee. Again, this is from Gishimwana Island in Rwanda. Wash process, red bourbon. Chewy, tell us a little bit about why we chose the AeroPress for this coffee.
Well, I chose the AeroPress for this coffee once because, as you know me and you have been following me for several couple years, this is my favorite way to brew coffee. So usually every time that I get a new coffee, when it's not a profile that when I buy it or the barista that gave me that friend, is they don't specify, hey, try on espresso, I always gonna try it first on the AeroPress. Okay. I don't know, it's my favorite pour over. I mean, it's so practical, it's plastic, you can take it everywhere you go. Just to let you know, AeroPress is not paying us for the advertisement, but we love this brand so much that we do it anyway.
And if you want to sponsor us,
yeah,
reach out, you know.
Please and thank you. So yeah, so usually every time that I have a wash coffee, like a very everyday coffee, I go in the AeroPress, just trying to find and seek for that perfect balance, you know. So is that what we're gonna try? Also, how you mentioned before, I has the honor to be the first place on the regionals last year in New York for the Nationals AeroPress here in the United States, made it all to the semifinals in San Francisco. This is a good practice today because in 1 month I'll be going in Boston for the Nationals this year. So keep tuned to see how the progress go. So we're gonna do the AeroPress. We're gonna go and we're gonna actually do acrylic change on our grinder. We're gonna go a little coarser. Instead of do 20 clicks as we did for the last one, we're gonna do 25. So this is, we were already on medium coarse. This is actually very in the edge of getting coarser. Why we're gonna do coarser on AeroPress? Because we gonna use a technique called bypass, but we're gonna talk about it once we are doing it. So yeah, so we're gonna start again. 15 grams of coffee. We're gonna keep almost everything pretty alike. Thank you. Dude, I love this subliminal scale cup.
It's really cool. I just picked one up. That's convenient.
Yes. And we're gonna start to grind again. This will be a little loud. We're gonna take a couple of minutes. I don't know, it's weird. This is the only thing that I don't like of hand grinders, that they take a little while. And I know that this is stupid because it's not true. But when I'm using a hand grinder, make me feel that I have 100% control of the course of my ground size.
Yep.
Which is just an illusion because once you set up your grinder, technically you have the control on it. But I don't know, makes me feel good, makes me feel confident.
It is a fun process.
Yes, it is.
You know, one thing with this particular brew style on the AeroPress, and AeroPress in general, I think this is going to be like an immersion brew method. You know, where the coffee grounds are completely immersed in the water, the entire brew process. Similar to like a French press. And anytime you're doing immersion brewing, you're going to go coarser. Again, it's all about controlling the amount of how much we extract the coffee. If we go too fine, we're going to over extract the coffee. Also, when we go to kind of do the plunger, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
We're going to build up too much pressure.
100%.
So
yeah, you're gonna have like, one of the reasons why I start to do coarse on my AeroPress is because I have broke so many decanters in my life. Because when you go really fine, really you need to put your body weight on it to press.
You'll see when we do the plunge step, you know, you're pushing down on your cup, and if you grind too fine, you have to push really hard, and you will break a glass decanter for sure.
So yeah, coarser you go, easier it goes. And another way is to see it also is you go really fine, you need to make your extraction really quick, try to compensate. And you will see that the AeroPress is a little elaborated. You have to do a flip, something, so sometimes you need to give you some time to prepare yourself to doing, especially is you just got an AeroPress today because you want to watch the live stream and you're doing it by first time. So we're gonna start and we're gonna brew 180 grams inside of the AeroPress. This one, how Justin was saying, how I was combining immersion, you don't really need to be more, or you don't have to be that careful of how are you pouring like a pour over, because you only need to wet all the coffee. You don't need to create any turbulence. And for that, we only just gonna use a spoon or the little stick that comes with the AeroPress just to be sure that we wet all the coffee, and we're just gonna do motions north, south, or back and forth for about 15 seconds.
The coffee tends to kind of clump when it meets water, and if you don't break it up like that, you'll get dry clumps of coffee. So
Exactly.
just making sure that we're wetting all of the coffee evenly, through the brew process.
Exactly. And then you just remember to put your filter inside your cup. Right now I'm using the titanium ultra fine just because I'm fancy, but you can do paper filter. That doesn't change anything. It does a little bit, but you do compensations, For this one, for a paper filter, you can go even if you want a little finer. One of the reasons also I'm going closer is because I don't want any fine grounds go through the micro perforations of the filter and give me that kind of like dry and
Almost
dirty,
papery taste,
papery taste,
yeah.
or that like dust sensation on my coffee cup. So once you are about 1 minute and 10 seconds, you're gonna put the cap. You're gonna move the scale a little from you.
Yeah, important note is don't push down on your scale.
Exactly, you can mess
Will
it
break
up.
your scale.
So I'm advised to do this. Always put your decanter on the top and flip it all together. Just make your life easier. If you just try to lift this and put it in, you're probably gonna have a mess, especially when you're using a regular cup. Then doesn't have the little seal as this one. You're gonna have coffee everywhere.
Yep.
So once your scale is in 1 minute and 30 seconds, you start to press for about another 30 seconds. And this is the part that we were saying, that if you have glass right here and you're putting a lot of pressure or a lot of weight on it, you can break it. So
Yep.
usually do it on top of your ceramic cup or some plastic decanter, or especially if you have like a Stanley cup or something, that would be even better, or a Jetty. And you stop once you hear this little whistle right there.
Okay,
And now we're going to the part that we call bypass. Bypass is just adding a little extra water to your extraction just to dilute that concentration and be able to highlight better those flavors. What are we doing bypass here? Because sometimes we don't want to get to extract all of that coffee has to offer, because sometimes you just need very specific flavors to make a coffee cup enjoyable. And this Rwanda has a lot to offer, which is a good thing, but we want some clearly. So usually we go a little shorter on our ratio, and then we just dilute it with extra water. So we are giving that mouthfeel experience that we are looking for with a 1:16 ratio, was instead of 1:13, but we're having that clearly that we cannot get is we keep extending our extraction.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense for you guys? So we're just gonna add 40 milliliters of hot water to our bypass. How extend you want to do your bypass will depends on how thick you want your body. If you want something more light, you can add more water. If you like it very intense, you can just leave it as it was. So you're gonna try this.
Yeah.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
So clean.
Yeah, one thing that really stood out about this coffee to me was, first of all, how clean it is, but there's like a natural sweetness to it. I would call it like a sugar cane sweetness almost. I tried a few different Rwandan coffees, and this is the one that really stood out to me in that way, where there's that natural sweetness, sugar cane type sweetness. The cool thing is about having these coffees that are from the same origin, same region of Rwanda, is there's still the same origin characteristics across these two coffees. So there's a similar flavor profile. The anaerobic natural definitely turns up the volume,
Yep.
on those notes. But really nice natural sweetness to it. Nice kind of citrus acidity. Yeah, really nice cup. And I still think this one also has kind of that almost like a caramel chocolate, I don't know, like aftertaste almost,
Yep.
similar type of sweetness.
Yep.
I
I mean, how we were saying, like, it's very important to like add or to highlight some flavors before the extraction, the processing, but we cannot add flavors that the coffee doesn't have to also.
Yeah.
So you cannot expect to have like really crazy and funky flavors for like how that reel that we were watching earlier from a Caturra or something like that. A lot of those flavors are coming from the genetic of that seed of that plant. It's just offering you what they have. And some analogy that I really like to do when I'm talking about coffee with people is like, imagine the coffee bean or your seed as a car brand. For example, we have these two Rwandas. We can say that that's Ford, Rwanda. And then you have a Floor Expedition and then a Floor Explorer.
Yeah.
Both pretty much do the same job. But if you are, for example, cross country from Pittsburgh to the Grand Canyon, you probably might like to use the Expedition because you have more space.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to say like all of them are coffee, but the genetics offer you different flavors or different uses. That's why usually you go to a barista and you're like, I want that coffee on espresso, and then the barista will tell you, I don't recommend you that.
Yeah.
Just because in our experience about what that bean tastes or how it works, because sometimes there are beans that are just too massive on shape that they just get stuck in the grinder. So you prefer to use loosen or put over because you can actually go coarser with different grinders with bigger bores. So those things usually have a lot to do on it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know, I think as roasters, one of the things that we are doing when we're kind of dialing in a profile is asking ourselves, why did the producer make the decisions they made? You know, it's kind of what I talked about before. You know, initially when I was learning to roast, it was very process driven, and it was kind of, I don't want to say I, you know, approached every coffee the same way, but my inspiration and what was kind of driving it wasn't the producer, it was what I wanted in the cup.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of what visiting Origin changed for me was, now I'm asking myself, okay, why did the producer make these decisions they made?
Yeah.
Why did they choose to process this as an anaerobic natural? What were they trying to bring out? And you know, that's ultimately kind of what drives my roasting profiles. I'm always looking for balance between, you know, the acidity, the sweetness in the coffees, but also honoring the decisions that they made at Origin.
Exactly. Once you understand and you be part of that connection with Origin, you understand the intentionality behind its decision, and then that also becomes your ritual. There is a lot of intentionality of why I brew this coffee the way that I brew it.
Yeah.
Because as roasters, as baristas, as brewers, our biggest piece of work, of bigger piece of art, is actually revealing the best expression of that work before us. There is so many hands in this big coffee change that they just support something to the character of this coffee.
Yeah.
And it's on us, roasters and baristas, to be able to reveal that to the people. I cannot do a good job as a barista if my roaster is not giving me a good roast.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if Justin is giving me a wonderful roast that will be highlight all the intentions behind this particular process, is I don't know what I'm doing. Is I messing up the recipe and I'm not seeking for that balance.
Yeah.
Because at the end, we are the translators of this coffee. I grabbed this bag of coffee, I read the profile, it said caramel, dry fruits, chocolate, citrus. But I'm the one that's gonna make the coffee taste like that.
Yeah.
Because coffee doesn't just taste like that for nothing. And I always say people, and it's something that I have read and it's very true, between wine industry, spirit industry, or specialty coffee is the harder. Because when you buy a really fancy and expensive and premium bottle of wine, you are already getting the final product.
Pour the glass and you're
Exactly.
done. Yeah.
When you buy a bag of coffee, it doesn't matter if it's a geisha from Panama that is like 90 plus and it's like $1,000 per kilo or whatever. If you don't know how to brew her, it might taste like the coffee that you can get from Costco.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned kind of the chain that coffee has to go through to ultimately end up in your cup. It's kind of, every cup of coffee is kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
When you think about just how many hands, you know, this coffee started in Rwanda. It takes 3 to 5 years for a coffee plant to produce fruit. So there was 3 years of decision making from the producer, then the hands that picked the coffee, the hands that processed the coffee, and then it had to be exported to the United States. I had to purchase the coffee, roast the coffee, and a barista had to, come up with a recipe. So, I talked about at the beginning that I want people to feel curious, connected, and just slow down and appreciate the coffee in front of them is ultimately my mission, because truly, every coffee is a miracle when you get down to it.
There's a lot of beauty on it when you see it like that, because chances that you're gonna get to try this exact cup of coffee again are almost zero.
Yep.
Why? Because coffee change harvest by harvest. It doesn't matter if it's the same plant. The decisions that the farmer have to do, because how the climate is changing, the weather is changing, how the nutrients in the soil are changing, how everything in the arounds that he cannot control is changing, affects the final flavor. Even how the coffee is degassing. I'm using this ground size today because it's 2 weeks roast old. Then in 3 weeks I might need to change my recipe because the attributes of the flavors that I can have for the coffee will be different. It's just how coffee is aging. It's just how the roast is aging. The same with people, I'm not the same person that I was yesterday because I'm 24 hours older than I was yesterday, stuff like that. Or I'm not the same barista that I was when I was in Honduras. So when you start to think in that intentionality of coffee, like enjoy and take your time to slow down and actually get to taste and value the cup of coffee you have in front of you, everything change. Because coffee becomes a ritual. It's not just a drink to get the boost of caffeine that you need and keep going with your day. It's just like people, it's art, it's purpose.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can tell, take coffee very seriously.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Jorge, for brewing this coffee and talking about it with me. Give us a few minutes to kind of get everything set up again, and we'll be right back.
All right, everyone, we're back here now. We're gonna wrap up now, so thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed brewing the coffees if you have purchased the kits ahead of this stream. If not, you can go over to Dustin's website to purchase them. And what would that be, Dustin?
AspenCoffee.co.
AspenCoffee.co. You can purchase any of the coffees that he has available, and then of course these kits, where you'll be able to basically follow along. We'll be re-uploading this live stream right afterwards, so you'll be able to go ahead and kind of re-watch, follow along for the recipes and such. A few shout outs for kind of small local creators and businesses. pgh.coffee, if you're in the Pittsburgh area or Allegheny County, a great resource for finding local cafes, finding out their hours, stuff like that, kind of keeping track of your local coffee journey, exploring different shops and small businesses. Chewy, do you have any people to shout out?
Well, just shout out to Dynamic Coffee Roasters because they have taught me a lot. I'm the barista I am today because they have mentored me a lot. Also, like, follow Origin Club on Instagram, Aspen Coffee Co or Barista Chewbacca, Aspen Coffee Co, because if you want to keep watching these live streams, you want to keep getting like what we're gonna do next, what will be our next event. Follow our Instagrams and you will find out over there.
And for our next event, that's actually going to be happening next Sunday in the Pittsburgh area. It's going to be a latte art seminar where Jorge is going to be leading us through that, teaching you how to basically do the basics of latte art and pour simple designs, but also if you're more advanced, teaching you how to pour some more advanced designs. And then there's an optional additional experience, which we recommend, which is going to be a 3-course coffee tasting hosted by myself and Brendan of Stratus Coffee. So you can register on our Instagram and website for that. And then Dustin, do you have any shout outs?
Well, first I want to thank you guys, Origin Coffee Club, Jorge, Barista Chewbacca on Instagram, Aspen Coffee, of course, Dynamic Coffee Roasters. Andrew's a great resource. I've learned a lot from him just from conversation. We got Jet over at Still Coffee, of course.
People from SEMA Coffee that you get to travel with them. And
that's right, yeah. SEMA Coffee, who I traveled to Honduras with earlier this year. Like Misha mentioned, coffees are up on my website. My goal really is to, again, make people curious and connected. So I want you to feel more connected to kind of the coffee you're drinking and the origin and how it was processed, and just feel connected to that story and curious about what coffee can be. So Misha, thanks you for the platform and letting me talk through that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Remember to learn about coffee, sip some great coffee, and